Hi, you probably know who I am if you're here. If you don't, my name is Cody. I'm a comedian and I do stuff on TikTok as well. You might know me from the Ace Council videos. And I'm not really a YouTuber, but a YouTuber included one of the Ace Council videos in an asexual TikTok cringe compilation. And I needed to talk about it. Please don't go and find them. I don't want you to do that. I don't want you to harass them. I don't need you to defend me. I can defend me. I'll be fine. So let's watch.
Something I've never talked about on my channel is asexuality. The old-fashioned definition of asexuality is people who don't want to have sex, but apparently it's way more nuanced and complicated than that.
Yes. Yes, it is. Like, genuinely. I don't see what the problem is. You started with the wrong assumption. That's never been what it's about. It's about not having attraction to people. And I mean, it's fine to have the wrong definition as long as you're not making a video about it. Like, as long as you're not going out there and spreading misinformation, whatever, you're allowed to have wrong opinions. And that will become a theme in this video, as you'll probably find out.
And apparently it's under the LGBTQIA+ umbrella. So let's watch some TikToks and try to be more educated on this topic.
If you're trying to educate yourself, like for real, if you want to make people think you're not just trying to dunk on people that you find different, TikTok is not the place to go. The way the algorithm works is you got to make it short, you got to make it snappy, and not everything is good in that sort of format. And that's part of why I'm making this video, so that way I can hopefully better explain things for you and help you understand where the community is coming from. We got movement on the princess front. This is big news. I just looked at the first little bit of footage and I noticed all these circles in my eyes, so I'm gonna just take my glasses off. I hope y'all don't mind. All right, let's watch this first TikTok of the cringe compilation.
Basically, asexuality is a spectrum. As a whole, we are not sexually attracted to people. Some people are in certain situations, because again, spectrum, but not in general. I'm not really at all, ever. I don't think so. Never think I've experienced it. But anyway, libido is a separate thing from sexual attraction. You will find this on any source on asexuality.
Sexual attraction has nothing to do with libido? Oh, come on now.
I understand where you're coming from, okay? Like, genuinely, I do get why you would think that those two are the same thing. Because for most people, they are. Libido is a very general feeling. It's just like your body is ready to go. That's basically all it is. Attraction is the desire to do something with someone specific. Whereas libido is a much more general feeling. Like, you can feel libido without feeling attraction and vice versa. You can feel hungry, but you could not crave anything in particular. Like, you can see how those are two things. Hunger is a general body feeling that you're having, and craving is your brain saying, I want this specifically.
Another thing to consider is that asexual people sometimes are sex repulsed, sometimes are sex positive, and sometimes neutral.
An asexual person who is sex positive. That makes sense.
Wow. Great argument there, Mr. Denmark. Remember to hydrate, kids. First off, yes, you can be asexual and sex positive. Although sex positive is slightly off on what this person is saying. What they mean to say is sex affirming. Someone can be sex affirming and asexual because there are more reasons to have sex than sexual attraction. For example, you want to make your partner feel good. You want that feeling of physical closeness. You like the endorphin rush. Like, you can like something but not desire to do it or have it be important in your life. Anyway, second TikTok, which is somebody reading text, which is always fun. That's the best way to learn on TikTok, is just somebody dancing while text goes by. It's basically reading a book. Anyway, my opinions aside, let's watch this second one.
Things you might not have known about asexuality. Asexuality refers to a lack of sexual attraction, not a lack of attraction altogether.
Didn't really mention this before because it wasn't relevant, but you can be attracted to someone in different ways. The point is, yes, you can have attraction, but not be sexually attracted to someone.
Asexual people can have any romantic orientation. For example, I'm an asexual lesbian. You want to have a companion without having sex. If that's you, I mean, cool. I don't have a problem with that at all. Of course not.
An asexual lesbian is somebody who is attracted to women, but not in a sexual way. That's all that means. And it doesn't mean that they don't want to have sex or they are incapable of having sex. It depends on the context of the situation, and it depends on the amount of repulsion they feel towards that sort of thing. I know you said you respect it, but you also gave a look at the camera like, so we all know how you really feel, Mr. Denmark.
Not all ace people are sex repulsed. Some enjoy it and have a high sex drive. How can you be asexual with a high sex drive? It's like saying, oh, homosexual men, they can have sex with women. They can be attracted to women. That's what I hear when I see stuff like this. And it's so stupid.
Do you want a pretty simple definition of asexuality? Because I can give that to you. All right. Asexual, in general, means somebody who never or almost never experiences sexual attraction. That's it. There are a couple of exceptions that we can get into later. But right now, that's the simple definition that's going to cover most people in the community. The sex drive doesn't have anything to do with it because attraction is like, ooh, I like this person, I think this person's cool, and the libido and the sex drive is the evolutionary urges to reproduce. Those do overlap for most people, but for asexuals, not really. Also, on your this is basically like saying homosexual men can have sex with women. You know that happens, right? You know, historically, there have been a lot of homosexual men that have powered through that because being gay was illegal. Third TikTok. Me. Just a reminder that you can find people aesthetically pleasing and still be asexual. You can be attracted to someone and still be asexual. You can want to be in a relationship and still be asexual. You can do the activity and still be asexual. And if you are not asexual, it is not your place to tell people what does and does not count as asexual.
I love how these activists want to be in a minority group. However, the definitions of these terms are so broad that most people can relate to them. You can't be in a minority group if that minority group is, first of all, made up most of the time, but also something that most people can relate to. I'm sorry, but you can't have it both ways.
All right, now you're just making shit up. What part of asexuality are you claiming that most people can relate to? Like, genuinely. If you make a reaction to this video, tell me. You can't just say this shit and not provide any sort of evidence or proof or logic behind what you're saying, because you're just being lazy, all right? And you're allowed to do lazy content, but if you're gonna come after me specifically, you better cite your sources. Also, are we casting a broad net? Yes, absolutely. Does that include the majority of people? No. The majority of people feel sexual attraction in a way that doesn't make them feel othered by straight society or queer society. And by the way, the reason we cast a wide net is because we want to help people. We want to bring in as many people who have very similar experiences to us and help them. If we get people in that net that aren't asexual and don't want to identify as asexual, or think they're asexual and eventually realize, wait, no, this was something else entirely, that's fine. There is nothing wrong with changing labels. There's no pressure to keep a label for life. It's not a lifetime commitment. It's supposed to describe how you feel right now. Water time! Water. It's the stuff that you're supposed to drink. Sponsored by a specific water company? No, just the concept of water. It's good old H2O. That's my sponsor.
It's because activists are so afraid of offending some people that they have to make the definitions broad. And I get it that we shouldn't leave people out of a conversation. However, what's the point of having these sexualities, gender identities, and labels if anyone can just relate to them.
What the hell do you mean by other genders, sexualities, and labels being too broad? I have a feeling you mean like non binary labels, given the fact that you made this video where you basically, in the title, outright state that you don't think non binary is a thing. So I think you just think that anything that's not in your strict definition of LGBT shouldn't count and is too broad.
And if you are asexual, we have been gatekept from too many communities to start gatekeeping ourselves. We are not gatekeepers, we are welcomers to the land of asexuality. And if people decide to come in and realize that this place isn't for them, they are free to go. It is not our job to police asexuality. Thank you.
I think that this person needs to go out more.
This is the first true thing you've said all video, Mr. Denmark. All right, that is just a genuine fact. I mean, you could probably tell that from literally any of my TikToks. Don't know why you needed to pick the Ace Council one. I do need to touch grass, but also I have a grass allergy. So
I have no idea what he's talking about.
I've watched the first 3 minutes of this video, Mr. Denmark. You've made that very clear.
I know all about gatekeeping in the trans community because that's a heated topic and it's an important topic. So the wrong people don't make irreversible changes to themselves and their bodies.
That's not gatekeeping. That is watching out for people's health and safety. Hormones and surgery are a major thing and should not be treated lightly. That's not gatekeeping. Gatekeeping in the trans community would be, for example, saying, oh, if you don't feel dysphoria, then you can't possibly be trans. Or, oh, if you don't want bottom surgery, then you don't qualify as trans. Or, non binary isn't a thing. That would be gatekeeping in the trans community. Once again, you're just with the wrong definitions of things. I dropped something. Yeah, having ADHD and trying to film a long form video is hell because I keep finding like these sorts of things that wrap up the wire, and I keep wanting to play with them with my hands, and I can't do that on camera because that would be distracting.
But I have no idea what's going on in this community.
If you don't know what you're talking about, don't make a video about it, especially when there's a group of people who, aren't focused on sex, and because of that, have a lot of free time. It just gets worse from here.
I did ask you all on my Instagram, what did you think about asexuality? And let's read some of them today.
Pro tip, if you don't want to seem extremely biased against a group of people, maybe don't put that group of people's name in air quotes. I also just realized that this TikTok compilation has 3 videos. That is not a compilation. That is barely a TikTok group. 3 videos, 3 TikToks. If this were a Vine compilation, it would be 20 seconds.
Someone wrote, not LGBT. I totally agree. LGBT is lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transsexual. That's my opinion. Transgender is probably the old-fashioned term of LGBT.
I don't really have enough knowledge to have a response to this part. I'm just leaving it in just to give you a better idea of the person who made this video.
I don't agree that asexuality is a thing. I think it's a thing that some people, for some reason, don't want to have sex.
You do realize that the points you're making are just repackaged homophobia and transphobia from the past, right? By saying, I don't believe that this person actually feels this way and is just doing it to get attention or is just a confused straight or cis person. That's the same argument that people made about gay people and trans people like 20 to infinity years ago. You do realize that, right? You're just basically repackaging shit that dragged your part of the community down, turning around, closing the gate, and using those same arguments against people that would also like support, that also deal with shit, that also don't qualify in straight culture. I don't know. I just feel like that's a dick move.
But I don't see it as a sexuality. It's quite the opposite. It's the lack of sexuality, and I don't think it's that deep, and it has, again, nothing to do with LGBT.
Sure. If you want to be a real stickler for the words, then yeah, asexuality is technically not a sexuality in that case. Whatever, fine. But let's go with your very strict definition. Let's say LGBT is just lesbians, gays, bisexuals, and transsexuals. In that case, asexual people, aromantic people, non binary people, a lot of trans people are all going to be left out of your group. So now we've got a bunch of these people floating in the ether because they're not in the queer community, they're not in the straight community. So where do these people go? Do they have to form a third group? Or are you just going to completely ignore them and pretend like they don't exist because it's not convenient for your worldview? I just want you to know that that kind of feeling hurts a lot of people and ultimately holds everyone back. You're missing out on a group of people that wants to fight with you, that wants to help you out, that deals with, the perils of the dominant culture, and you're just like, "Nope, don't want them. They're weird. I don't get it." It's just
Someone wrote complex trauma, and that's a thing. I mean, if you've experienced trauma regarding your body and sexuality, of course that will affect your mental health, and that would affect the way that you look at sex. Of course it would, and it's completely valid. That's the only time I'm gonna say that word. It's valid if you don't want to have sex due to trauma.
I agree. And that is why some people in the asexual community want to include those people who do experience sexual attraction but don't want to act on it because of trauma. Because even though it doesn't fit our strict definition, we want to help people. And they are very similar to how we're feeling. And we can provide resources and help those people out. Because ultimately, helping people out is what the ACE community wants to do. Because you know what's more important than having a concise, strict definition for your group? Being a good person, helping people out when they need it, providing support, all those sorts of things. That's the point of having a community. That's what it's all about. Surprisingly based take on a niche asexual topic from somebody who doesn't think we're a real thing.
If you're offended when I say that it's due to sexual trauma, you're kind of stigmatizing sexual trauma.
If someone says that 4 times 4 is 17, and I tell them no, it's 16, I'm not offended. You're just wrong. We want to help people as much as you do. Like, sexual trauma sucks, and people deserve all the support they can get for it. I don't see how we could possibly be stigmatizing because we want the same goal. We want people with sexual trauma to heal. By saying that not all asexual people are traumatized, that's not stigmatizing anyone. Like, in the same way, if I said all trans people are Korean, and you said, no, that's not true. That's clearly wrong. That's not stigmatizing trans people or Koreans. That's just me being wrong.
This one is interesting. I used to identify as such for years. Turns out I was just young and dysphoric. Yeah, it totally makes sense. I didn't have sex for years because I was too dysphoric about my body. Why would I share it and use it with another person?
I agree. 100%. That is a proportion of asexual people. People who think, oh, I don't feel sexual attraction, but in reality, it's dysphoria and all those sorts of things. Identifying as ace doesn't stop you from exploring your gender. If after figuring out they're trans or non-binary, they're much more comfortable in their own skin and that makes them actually feel attraction, good for them. Like, genuinely, that's good. Also, I know trans people who went on hormones, did all these things, and are still under the asexual umbrella. Just because you're more comfortable in your own body doesn't mean that you will become allo. It's simple as that.
This is about your mental health, and it should not be hard to talk about. It should not be offensive to talk about. And if you don't want to have sex, something's wrong. Let's not stigmatize that. Let's not shame on the people who don't have the desire. But we as human beings, adult human beings, we naturally want to have sex. Period.
So this is just another homophobic talking point repackaged for a new group of people. You can make the exact same argument saying, naturally, people want to have sex with the opposite gender. And if you don't want to do that, then something's wrong and you need to be fixed. And it shouldn't be offensive to say, like, do you not see the parallels? Sometimes something genuinely is wrong. Sometimes it's a hormone imbalance, sometimes it's trauma, sometimes it's a couple of other things. But to assume that it's all of them, especially when some people have worked on those things and not had any differences happen, that I mean, yeah, I don't want to say it's offensive, but it's frustrating as hell to hear you say that.
Sex and masturbation is really good for you. It's healthy. It's healthy mentally, but also physically, and you can't deny that.
Most asexuals would agree with you on that. But also, just because one particular thing is healthy doesn't mean everyone needs to do it. There are a lot of different ways to be healthy, and there are a lot of people who live very unhealthy lifestyles who do experience sexual attraction and do have sex on a regular basis. It doesn't make you healthy, and not having it doesn't make you unhealthy.
I just didn't allow myself to have sexual desire, but it was there. I just wanted to stay a child. I'm 100% positive that this person is not the only one, and there are some reasons to that. Looking into this asexual community, a lot of these people either admit to have an autistic diagnosis or they show some signs and symptoms of it.
Oh boy, if your takes on autism are as spicy as they are for asexuality, then we're in for a fun ride.
And that makes sense. I'm not an expert on autism, but I know the thing about, physical touch and stuff like that is complicated for autistic people.
Touch sensitivity, yes, it is a thing. It is something that people deal with, but it doesn't affect attraction or desire as much. Attraction and desire is something that happens before any contact happens. And that's what we're talking about. Like, you can have sensory issues and still be sexually attracted to people. Are autistic people overrepresented in the asexual community? Yes. Statistically speaking, yes. But also, autistic people are overrepresented in the entire queer community. Not having an implicit understanding of the social rules makes it easier to break them. It makes it so you're more willing to go outside of social norms to do things that you want to do. And therefore, you're more likely to join groups that are on the fringe of society, such as the LGBTQ community.
But also the mental maturity. Some young adults are still mentally like young teenagers. So of course they don't want to have sex because they don't feel like they're old enough mentally to have sex.
Oh boy. There is a lot to unpack in this one. Don't appreciate the infantilization of autistic people. Just because we enjoy things that are less adult doesn't mean that we're mentally 10 years younger. It just means we don't give a shit about what society thinks. We want to have a good time and we don't care about the expectations of being an adult. And assuming that that makes us 10, 15 years younger mentally than we actually are, that is bad. That is bad. That leads into rhetoric that gives us like autism speaks, that are like, we need to cure autism because these people are wrong. There's something wrong with them because they annoy me because they don't follow social expectations. And that gets autistic people killed. All right? Like, Jesus. Bad opinion. Terrible opinion.
So I would say that instead of calling it asexual, how about calling it what it is? Symptoms of autism or symptoms of sexual trauma? Is there something wrong with having autism? Is there something wrong with being a survivor of sexual assault or anything in that lane? No, not at all.
You know why it would be a problem to say asexuality is just symptoms of autism or symptoms of sexual trauma? Because it's wrong. You're implying a causal link. You're saying, oh, it's a symptom of autism, therefore the autism is causing the asexuality. And that is not necessarily true. The research isn't out yet. There are conflicting opinions. Like, we genuinely don't know if being autistic like makes you asexual in the same way that we don't know if being autistic makes you trans. It doesn't delegitimize either of those communities. The most important point, you are depriving us of our right to say what we are. You, as somebody who's not a part of either community, presumably, you're saying we don't get to decide for ourselves because either we're not mentally mature enough or something terrible happened, one of the worst things to happen in somebody's life, and you're like, no, I still get to decide whether or not you get to use the label. Don't you love it when people weaponize autism to be like, yeah, this thing can't be legitimate?
A lot of you say that you don't buy it, and you guys are just regular people out there, and if you don't get it or you don't buy it, it says a lot.
If regular people don't think that something is legitimate, that says a lot. Those are bold words coming from a trans man. I feel like most people don't think that either of our identities exist. I'm just saying. Also, do you know what sampling bias is? Wow. It's not a real thing unless people think it's real, says the trans man, not realizing the irony.
The people who are going to be extremely offended by this video and me not believing that asexuality is a valid label, maybe they're spending too much time on TikTok and in this community.
Do you want to know when I came out as asexual? 2016. 5 years before I went on TikTok. At a point where asexuality just wasn't discussed at all. To the point where the only asexual representation was basically robots, aliens, and Todd from BoJack Horseman. I came out when there wasn't a community for me to go to, really. I mean, there was, but I didn't know about it. I just knew, based on my experiences and how I was feeling, that the label fit me. And you know what? That sucks. It's not a fun experience. You know what I would have appreciated at that point is a group of people who understood what it's like to be going through something like that and could help me put words to how I was feeling. The reason I do what I do on TikTok with the Ace Council is one, to educate, and two, to make people who feel like me not feel alone. Because I have gone through that loneliness and it's not fun. And I don't want anyone to go through that. It just sucks. It just sucks. No other way to put it. It sucks.
I'd say if you feel literally nothing, it's a hormonal imbalance. I mean, that makes sense. I have experienced estrogen as my leading sex hormone in my body. I've also experienced, or I do experience now, testosterone being my leading sex hormone in my body. And testosterone makes you really horny. And even though you're a biological woman on testosterone, it doesn't really matter. And that's because hormones mean a lot.
I am not going to argue that some people who identify as asexual have a hormone imbalance. Because I have a hormone imbalance. And you know what I did? Well, first off, when I told my mom that I was asexual, her immediate reaction was to go get me tested, to go see if I had some sort of problem going on. And I did. I had very low testosterone. I had the testosterone of like an 80-year-old man. Did some more tests and found a tumor on my pituitary gland. And fortunately, it's benign. And, you know, they did an MRI. It's not growing. It's all good. But I have to go get that checked out every couple of years, even though more than likely it's not causing any problems. Eventually, I did go on clomiphene to take care of the testosterone problem. And I didn't feel any different. But when they tested me, they found I had above average testosterone at that point. But I had no libido still, no desire, no sexual attraction whatsoever. So I've gotten this fixed. I know what it's like to have the appropriate amount of testosterone, and it does not feel any different to me. Because I've worked on the gender stuff. I've figured myself out mostly on that front. I have worked on trying to be happier. I have worked on the hormones, and it hasn't changed a goddamn thing. And as you can imagine, yeah, I would be pretty upset if somebody said, "Oh, you should test your hormones. You should see if you're just dysphoric." I have. Nothing has changed. Anyway, let's get this video over with. Jesus.
What's a little bit interesting about this is, as you know, women biologically have a lower sex drive than men. A lot of these asexual people are women. So yeah, maybe that could explain a lot of things.
Okay. So, earlier in the video, you said that asexuality and autism are very much interconnected, and you would expect that most people in the asexual community are autistic. But you're also saying that most people in the asexual community are women, and that is true. So, which is it, Mr. Denmark? Because it can't be both. 75 to 80% of autism diagnoses go to men, but most out asexual people are women. So if it's autism, you would expect there would be more men, but now you're saying it's a lower sex drive thing, so you'd expect it to be more women. So which is it? It cannot be both. I don't know. It's just you're just wrong again. Like you're just not thinking through the things you're saying. And I get that you make a lot of content and you don't have time to do that, to always, fully think through what you're saying. But also, maybe you should. Maybe you should make less content.
But no matter what, they're not an oppressed group. They're not a part of LGBT necessarily. It's what it is. People who don't want to have sex. End of story.
Look, if you want to claim that asexual people are not part of LGBT, fine. Allowed to have wrong opinions. But to say we are not oppressed, we're not an oppressed group, is wrong, objectively. Now, am I saying that ace people have it as bad as trans people? No, I'm not. I'm not going to say that because it's not true. I think trans people, 99% of the time, have it worse. Asexual people have our own issues. Asexual women deal with corrective rape at similar rates to lesbians and transgender men. It is a problem. It is awful. And to say we're not oppressed ignores that completely. Also, compared to heterosexuals, bisexuals, homosexuals, we are seen as less likable and less human. And as you can imagine, othering somebody in that sort of way, seeing us in some sort of uncanny valley, that's not good. And when the shit hits the fan, like we're not going to be the first people on the list, but we're going to be on the list. This is why I believe the queer community should be accepting of us because we are a lot closer than people think. We deal with a lot of things that people don't realize. And the fact that we are getting gatekept from both sides hurts. And it not only hurts us, it hurts everyone. I just want you to know the damage you're causing when you do that. If you watch this, you're probably going to react to it. Like, do it honestly. I want to hear what you actually want to say. Because I'm sure I missed some things. I'm sure I oversimplified things or I just completely forgot things. Because, I'm not a YouTuber. This is my first time doing long form content in a very long time. Wait, is that the end of the video, actually? I don't know.
Thank you all for watching this video. I hope you liked it.
Okay, yeah, it is the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you liked it. I didn't like the video. I feel like I've made that pretty clear. I'm gonna go eat lunch.